Hi guys, welcome to Coding Ambitions. In this video, we will learn about paging in Jetpack Compose. So, suppose we have a large number of records we are fetching from the network. So, how we should do that? Like, we need to take into account few things like how much records are loaded and how much to record to load. So that thing happens like we need to manage many things like first loading 20 records and keeping track of how many records have been loaded, and we need to maintain scroll position as well. Many things are there like we need to maintain manually, right? So what we can do is, so for that we can use the paging library, right? So if you are an Android developer, you might have used paging in the XML based Android development. So but today we will discuss about that paging in Jet Compose, right? So this is an app, simple app. We are loading the users here. So suppose I will be explaining all the things how we can fetch the data from the network and apply the paging there, right? So first of all, let's set up that. You can check out that here, this link. You can search that paging library, then you can find the setup here, right? So this is the version, and so if you see, this is for the paging common, paging runtime, these dependencies. If this paging runtime we can use there if without want to use library without Jetpack Compose, right? If you want to use it for Jetpack Compose, so what we can do is we can use paging compose, right? So let's add that. This project I have not added on the Git, so let me quickly add it on the Git. Let's commit initial commit, okay, and let me create a new branch then, right? So paging compose, yeah. So we can set up that here. If you see, oops, it is not the Kotlin based, so we can use the Groovy base diff, right? And so this is for adding the paging compose. We need to add this dependency, right? Let's sync it. So syncing it done. So now let me explain a few things about the paging library very quickly. Then we will be coming to the implementation part directly. So we need to know about like paging data, paging source, paging, so like the pager, paging data adapter. So paging data adapter we don't need for this Jetpack Compose thing. That we only need if we are not using the Jetpack Compose and directly doing the XML based development in Android, right? So mainly now we need to know about paging data, paging source, and pager, right? So paging source is basically the base class for loading snapshots of data. So that loads the data. So if you can just deduct the intention from the name, what paging source means, it is the source for paging, right? Which will be loading the data, right? And what is the data? Paging data. Paging data is the data which is loaded by the paging source, right? And all these things are managed by pager, right? So now what we need to do is, first of all, just let me quickly create a, so because we will be assuming we are fetching the data from the network, right? So what we will be doing for that, first of all, let's create a package here, and let's create an API class, sorry, interface. So let's just give it now name API, okay, cool. And let's make it interface, and let's define suspend function, that is the get users, okay. And suppose while doing paging, so we need to know about like which on which page we are now currently, right? So which page we are loading and which page now we need to load next, right? All those things. So that, suppose we are just passing one parameter, right? So from we are accepting it as parameter, and then we are loading the list of users, suppose, right? Okay, so what is the class? Okay, just let me quickly add the user class here. This thing we are doing manually, we are not using any class. So let's add the user data class here, right? Okay, and so what fields do we need in the user actually? So we can use val id, string, name, string, right? And then what we can add, I think id and name is enough for as of now. This pic we can use it statically. So suppose this is the class, and I'll be loading it from here, right? So now this is I am creating, like, because this can be retrofit interface, right? But we are just assuming, like, we are faking it, right? And then what we need to do is we can implement it, okay, and we can make it a class, and then we can implement this method, okay. So it's implementing the app API, and we can add override modifier here. So suppose we are generating the just the data statically, right? Suppose one page number is which we are fetching, which we will be getting from the paging source. So this is just a simple API. You can just think of, depending upon this page number, so we will be returning the records, right? Suppose for we are fetching the first page number, we will be fetching the first 20 records. Then it will be the 21st, like the starting number for the second page, right? So page number we can be the starting number for the, like, with the number of records we are fetching from the network, it can be the starting number, or you can say it can be the offset, right? Usually in the paging based APIs you have limit and offset two parameters, right? You can have limit and offset, right? So this can be the offset. Limit is the number of records, and offset can be from where to start picking, right? Suppose we have already picked 20 number, and now suppose they are based on the ID. Now we want to pick up the 21st, so the offset will be 21st. So it will be like adding the limit every time, right, to it. Suppose we have fetched from 0 to, suppose offset is 0 first time, and we have fetched 20 records. The next time offset will be 21, we will be fetching the 20 records. So next time it will be 41, we will be fetching another 20 records, it will be 61. It will keep adding the fetching the 20 records and keep adding the 1, right? So for that, suppose what we want to do is, so basically I will be simulating the network API here. And here I will be just simulating the network call, right? So suppose we have one variable here, page number, or we can even directly do that. We don't need. Suppose we will be creating a range here. This is just, you don't need to do this part. This is we are just doing for faking the, like, we are fetching the data from the network. But usually in this video we will not be fetching from the network. But I will be implementing the logic same way, so that you only don't need to make any changes there. So you just need to replace this logic with the API part, and everything will be fine. I'll be mentioning one point which you need to change, right? So suppose we are just creating the range here. So what we can do is, sorry, it's the range. So what range we want to use is page number dot until, suppose from page number 1, suppose in the initially it will be the 0. So then from 0 to 20, right? 20 will be, we need some things like well, const well items per page. Let's say we want to fetch 20 records, right? So it will be page number plus items per page, right? Suppose it is 0, it will be from 0 plus 20, so it will be from 0 to 20. Next time it will be 21, then it will be from 21 to 40, right? 41, or you can say. So that way we can just generate our logic. And now suppose just for the faking it, like we are loading the data from the network, we are adding one delay here, right? Okay, so now what we need to return is for this whole range, suppose we are fetching the 20 records. So what will we be doing is, so here we will be returning the user response user class, and then we will be mapping it to the, this is just custom logic, you don't need to think about this here, because this part will be replacing with your API call, right? Mostly. So suppose this is the ID, and for ID we can assign the okay, for ID I think we can use this it, so whatever is number is, we are using that, right? And then what we need to do is name, so for that we can use dollar it, so user 1 2 3 4, that thing, right? If you see ID is string and int is number, so I think we can make ID int, we don't need to make it as string, right? So this is it, and I think we are good to go. So just this is the first step, we have prepared the API, right? So now we'll be moving to the paging part actually, but before that let's create one remote data source. So we can have two kind of data sources, local data source and remote data source. Remote data source will be from fetching the data from the network. Local data source will be for fetching the data from the local DB, right? So this class, it will be accepting the API parameter, right? App API, right? And here what we'll be doing is suspend function get users, right? Again that variable, oops, we need to pass it in the parameter first. Okay, and it will be returning the list of users from the API. Okay, cool. So now let's just return data from the API dot get users, right? And we can pass that page number here. Okay, cool. This data remote data source will be using in the paging. Now let's come to the paging part, right? So if in the data, let's add the paging source. So we need to add one class, that will be the user paging source, because that I have just explained. So what is paging source? The source for the paging, you can think of it like it will be providing the data, right? It will be the paging source of key will be of int type and data will be of suppose user. And now let's implement its members. So this is the, like if you see here key and value, and if you go what are they, so basically this is usually the type of the key which define what data to load. Suppose what data to load, like page number or item position, it depends upon our logic, right? Usually it will be the starting index, or you can say starting number of like which we are passing in the offset, right? So if you understand about limit and offset in the paging API, so you'll be thinking of it like a number which will be passing in the offset, right? Starting point for fetching the number of records, right? And similarly the value type of data loaded by, right? So what type of data it will be returning, it is that, right? So these two generic parameters it requires. And so this is the get refresh key. And for get refresh key, what we can do is, it's pretty easy, return state dot anchor position. So anchor position is the position which was last successfully, when we last successfully fetch the data, it's the position of that number, right? Page number, right? Or you can say the index of the item when we fetch the data last time successfully, right? It is that thing, last index. Or you can assume the last index, you can say last number, you can assume last index that successfully fetched data when read, right? Data is read, so last index, suppose this is the last index when data was read successfully, so last time it will be fetching, start fetching records from, while refreshing it will be fetching from there, right? So basically why we need this refresh key, so refresh key is used for the initial load of the next paging source. So or after invalidation, in these two cases it will be for the initial case and reload case, right? For both cases it will know from here like what key it needs to use, right? And then the load method, this will define like what data we are returning from it, right? So it requires load params. Load params again has load size and placeholder enable, few parameters are there. So you can see the load size is the number of records. So if you want to fetch how many records, that will go here, and it has key as well. This will be defining the current key, right? And similarly it will be returning the load result. It is again of type the key type and the data return data type, right? And load result again have few states, I'll be explaining them. Okay, so let's first of all add our logic here. So first of all, let's get the current page. So basically it will be the params dot key, right? So first we will check if it's set in the parameters. If key, which key is set, we will use that. Otherwise what we will be doing is we will be using the one first for first id, right? Or you can say the starting index if it is null. Otherwise next time what we will be setting there in the parameters, it will be using that, like 21, 41, 31, 51, all those, right? Every time, because we will be increasing it, right? And updating that. So this is that, and now let's fetch the data. So for that what we need to do is remote data source. Okay, it will be accepting the one parameter, that is the remote data source, right? This remote data source will be providing us the data. Okay, so here we can pass the current page and it will provide us data. And then what we'll be doing is we will be returning the load result. Okay, and load result, inside that it requires few parameters. Data is the return data. Okay, oops, load result dot page, we need to return this, right? So because it is based on the paging, right, it will be returning for this page, it will be returning the load result dot page, this data, right? For next page it will be again returning load result dot page for that page data, right? So now we will be using the previous key, and so previous key and next key, this logic will we need to define on our own. So if suppose current page is equal to 1, in that case do we have anything to fetch? Because we are just starting, before this we don't have anything. Suppose we have not loaded any records. If it is 1, it means we have not loaded any records, so previous key will be null in that case. Else it will be what we can be, suppose this is the current data, right? Suppose we have fetched it 1 to 21st. Suppose next time we have fetched from 21st to 40, so it will be the first key of the data, right? from where it need to start, right? Size minus 1. Oops, not the size, we need to first get. Okay. Okay, dot id, because uh, suppose id will be, what is the id? So because id is the int type for the user, suppose for the 21st key number we have fetched, which user we have fetched, that 21st number from where we will be getting? From the user id, because we are saving the same number in the id. So usually this thing you will be getting from the api result, right? Most of the time you will be getting these parameters previous, next in the api result. Now what it is saying? Yeah, it's saying for the next key. So for next key, what will be the logic? So basically, if data dot empty, so if data is empty, so in that case, what will happen? If data is empty, right? So then it will be, I think, null, because we have not any data, right? So if we don't have any data, how we will be defining which will be the next key, right? Else it will be the data dot last, so dot id, right? So basically, what is it? So these things, this one and this next key, usually you'll be getting from the apis, but still if we don't get it and we need to define our own logic, so you can just think of, suppose we are fetching, first time we are fetching 1 to 20, next time we are fetching 21 to 40, right? And next time we are fetching 41 to 60. So this will be the, for the previous part, suppose we have fetched this data, right? 21st to 40, second page. So for this, what will be the next key, right? Suppose this data return this page, so it will be the, for the previous data it will be the 21st key, right? From where it need to start, right? And for the next key, what it will be? Suppose what it will be, the next key is the 40, right? For this data dot last, in this data, this is the last key plus 1, that is this for the next, right? For previous, basically it will be the I mentioned it wrong, it will be the, here it will be the size actually. So you can say items per page, right? Because first id is 21st and this is the current page, then it will become previous page. I am making it very simple for you to understand, and it will be the next page, and this is data, right? This is the index number or id number of the record of the data, right? So if this is the current page, so for the previous page, what is data? This one. It needs to know what will be the starting record. So starting record will be this one. How will be getting this? So first data dot first record of this data minus items per page, it means 20. So 21 minus 20, it means 1, right? For the next, it will be the data dot last id plus 1, right? Cool. So this is about this logic. Okay, I hope you are getting it. So now this part is done, paging source is ready, right? So now what we need to do is what are it showing? First of all, let's check it. Okay. Okay, so what we can do is we can just capture the return inside try actually, so that we can catch the error case as well here, and we can catch exception here, and in the case of error, what we can return is load result dot error with the exception, right? And inside this, if it is successful, what we can do is we can return this load result dot page, right? Cool. Let's comment it so that it will be easy for you to understand why we have written this logic. Okay, so paging source is ready, guys. Now we need to use this paging source inside view model. Maybe we can add one repository layer as well, because usually we will be using the repository in the uh, view model, right? Get user paging source. Okay, so it will be returning the user paging source, and inside that app API implementation, and inside that if you go here, it requires remote data source. Okay, and then inside that, usually we should not do this directly passing the objects here. So maybe we can do it using the dependency injection. We can improve it, right? But as of now we can directly pass it. Okay, cool. So this is about the getting paging source, and then what we need to do is we need to create a view model class, right? So we can create it directly here, user view model. Okay, fine, and just extend the view model. Okay, and now what we need to do is, suppose we are returning the items here of type flow, right? So for this paging data, we'll be returning the flow of paging data, right? This is the data returned by the paging source, right? So it is of type user, right? Cool. So now what we need to do is we create a pager here. Okay, now pager, and here what we need to do is we need to set some config, that is the paging config, and inside paging config we need to specify the page size, that is the how many number of records we want to load in single page. Like it will be the limit in your API, you can think of it like that, right? So it can be the items per page, that same thing. Okay, and secondly we need to I think that's fine. And now what we need to specify is, so paging source factory, right? That is very important. So inside here we will be accepting the user repository, right? Private well user repository, and this user repository will be using here dot get user paging source, right? Okay, what it's saying is, so we have specified the pager here, right? And then from pager what we need to do is get the flow, right? So this is an extension function which will be converting it into the flow, right, of paging data, right? What pager returns is, it is an actually extension function we need to apply on it, flow, for getting the flow of data from the pager, right? Or you can say from paging source, right? So then we can even apply caching. So it will help us in caching the paging data, right? Suppose if user is it requires view model scope as well. So yeah, let's come to back that. Why do we need to use this? Suppose user is navigating the screen, right? In those cases, in configuration changes, so what will happen is the new activity will receive the existing data from this view model, right? Because it is caching this data, right? Paging data, instead of fetching it from this scratch from this API, right? It will use that cached data, so it will be caching the paging data, right? Okay, cool. So this is it. We have exported the items. Now let's quickly come to the where we are using it, right? Suppose we are user view model. Suppose now we are creating the view model here, so we can pass the user repository directly here. Okay, cool. And then how we can collect that data here, right? That is the main question here now. So how we can get those items here? So basically, lazy paging items, let's name it like this. Okay, lazy paging items. So how what we can do is, so we can use the view model for that. User view model dot items dot collect as, yeah, lazy paging items. This is an extension basically for the compose. They have developed this extension. It will be collect value from this flow of paging data, because these items is a flow of paging data, right? So it will be collecting flow and represent item them inside a lazy paging item, right, instance. So it can be used for lazy layouts, right? It will be automatically, whenever page is loaded, it will be automatically capturing the responses, right? So this lazy paging items now we need to use inside the this compose app. So let's pass it here, and inside this app let's use the items of user, right? So if you see its type lazy paging items of user, right? It will be automatically detecting when the page is loaded and all other things, right? So now let's quickly finish it, how we can apply that paging logic here in the items. So suppose now it's not loading from the paging, and how we can apply that logic here. So what we need to do is, first of all, inside the lazy column, we can check it here if lazy paging items dot load state dot refresh, right? So if it is load state dot loading, right, it means if refresh is loading, right? Refresh means it's initializing, right? Initially it's not loaded, it's starting the loading. This it implies that, right? For every state you can see refresh, prepend, append, so these will be there. Refresh will be for the initial loading, or in case of when we are refreshing, it will be between two cases. So if you see refresh load state here, it will be used in two cases of whenever we will be starting initial, and then else second case can be when we are refreshing, right, in those cases, right? So here what we can do is we can just display simple text here, waiting for data to load, right, backend, right? Okay, okay, cool. Right, saying okay. Okay, oops, we are inside lazy column, so we need to add it as an item. Okay, cool. Okay, and now the second thing is, inside these items, this thing will only happen when we are refreshing, or mostly it will be happening in the initial side. And for each state, so basically if you say load state dot, it can be load state dot loading, it can be load state dot, if you see inside here, not loading, loading, right? These states can be there, so we can check it. So now let's come to this, and here what we need to do is, instead of this dynamic page dot items count, we can pass that count here, and we can use on this index, we can fetch the item from here. From that list we can use that index and fetch the item, right? Cool. Now what we need to do is we need to use that item content here, right? Suppose, okay, wherever we need to make changes. So here instead of index, what we can display is item dot id dot to string. We can display that id here. Okay, cool. And so this will be the static. This will be now according to the paging from that item.id, right? So for this way we are accessing that item here. We can use any item. Suppose we have products, we can fetch their name, prices, everything, right? Similar to this. So now one more case we need to tackle. So suppose if data is now, that was for the initial order case, so here we will be mentioning the waiting for data, right, initially. So and now suppose we have fetched the data, but now suppose we have fetched 20 records and now we are waiting for the next 20 records. How we will be handling that case here? So lazy paging items dot load state dot append. In that case we will be checking the append. If append state is inside the load state dot loading, it means we are waiting for the next 20 records, right? So then what we can do is inside this item we can display just progress indicator, and let's modify dot fill max width, and then wrap content width alignment dot center horizontally, right? This is for aligning it center horizontally and filling the max width, right? Okay, so now let's, for preview part, just as of now I did, let's try to run it. Okay, what it's showing us, duplicate class, and why we are getting that, I'm not getting that case. Let's try to run it again. Okay, let's try to apply the minus decay. So we are loading the latest version of this library, so maybe what we can do is we can try to upgrade Kotlin here, I think. Okay, and we can upgrade Compose as well. Okay, compiler extension, it can be, might be, that can be due to some library conflicts. Let's try it. Oh yeah, it's now working. So you can see waiting for data. First it waited for data and that case was triggered, right? Which case? Okay, so if you see this case, right, because initially it started downloading, right? Refresh means whenever even we have refreshed the adapter, so it will, whenever it starts loading, it means it starts loading the data. It happens at that time, right? And then this case happened according to whatever the records it displayed them, and that went to the hidden, right? And then suppose this state will, it will be happening whenever, suppose we will be going to the bottom. If you see 40 and then next 20 and then 60 and then next 20, 80 and then next 20, you can see this loader. So this is how we can apply the paging, right? So now the question arises, if suppose, let's go to the user repository, this paging source. So suppose you are just directly fetching the records from the network, right? Suppose, because now this part is already done, if you see, but only this part might change, because this part is we are using the id, right, from our user field, right? So for you, you may get this from the api as well, like the next or previous. You can get these fields from the api itself as well, so you can then directly use that, right? So but otherwise what we can do is, for this case what we need to do is, so as I explained the things here, so this is it. But in your case, it might not be the id field of the last record. It might be the this you need to calculate this on the basis of your api. Basically this thing will be calculated based on your api logic, right? Suppose if you are fetching the records, and then what is happening is, suppose you have fetched the 20 records for your API. So what happened is, you have passed the limit of 20, and initially offset was the 1, right? So then next time offset was 21. So this logic might be changed. So for that you can be like implementing it some other way, like what can be that way. So if you see, suppose first time it was the offset was the 1, and next time it is 21. So and then it is 41, we are adding 20 each time, right? So it can be the, for you it can be the current page, right, plus this items per page, right? So this, only this logic can change. This is the basically this cannot be the common actually. It will be the basically changing upon our needs, right? So if you see, current page plus items per page, okay, then we can try it. You can see it's working perfectly fine. So you can make it like this. So this will be the most of the generic logic in most cases. So and suppose and here even we can make this one as generic. So let's just comment it out, and let's mark it. So first I explained how this is happening, but now we can try to make it generic, this one as well. So it will be most probably current page plus 1, right? Not the 1. So it is like, first initially it was the first part is the 1, and the next time what it will be 21. So we'll be adding the items per page, how many items we are loading, right? So next time it can be 41, or instead of this we can use the params dot load size, right? Why? Because this is the, we are directly passing from the pager side, right, paging configuration. So we can use directly that one here. So similarly, here what we can do is, we can use this one here, right, most probably. So suppose current page is 1, then none. Suppose if in the else case, what it will be, um, it will be the 21 next time, right? So then it will be current page is 21, suppose, right, then minus 20, so it will become 1, right? So this can be the generic logic, but usually I showed you how we can get it from the API result. But if we need some generic logic, it will be most probably the generic logic, right? You can see 20, next 20, 100, 120, 140 plus 20, 160, 160 plus 20, 180, right? So now paging is working fine. I think some issue is there. It's directly loading the records. Let's try with items per page. Or usually it will be implementing, because this is, I try to explain the general logic to you, but usually it will be according to the how many records we have fetched and what will be the ID of the next record, right? It will be happening according to that, right? So I don't know why it's not picking up the load size from the parameters. So we can ignore that. We can directly just use the how many items we are fetching. According to that we are specifying the, right? We don't need to use this actually. Maybe it's being calculated according to some calculations, so we are not aware about of that. But usually if you see, we can specify that inside this page size, load size, right? So basically we just directly use that parameter which we have used, the same parameter which we have used there, same parameter, because we know that many records are being fetched, so we see same page number of records, we can specify it here, like subtracting and adding, right, in the current page. So this is all about the paging, guys. I hope you guys now have an idea how we can use this paging library. 20, 40, 60, 80 and so on, okay, right? So usually till when it will work, whenever next page is not becoming null. So whenever next page is null, it will stop loading records, right? It will know that now it needs to stop, right? So guys, this is all about the paging library. I hope you guys now have an idea about how we can use the paging library in Jetpack Compose. So I'll be, if you like the video, you can please like it, share it and comment on it. And if you are new to my channel, please subscribe it. So that will motivate me to create more videos like this. So stay tuned for some other videos. Now it's time to say bye. And I will see you in the upcoming video. Till then, bye bye. Take care. Have a great time. Keep coding.